Good evening. My name is Bryce King, and I will be presenting to you on ability grouping and its positive aspects and some of its negative aspects. The first off, ability grouping is the practice of grouping children together according to their talents or levels of learning in the classroom. At times, this strategy is appropriate. However, conducted the majority of the time, students tend to get a label, which not every student really wants. Um, I've experienced this where for instance, in our reading programs, we have a group of we have a teacher that teaches a group of low leveled readers at each grade level. Well, every day when we go to get ready for reading, those students then have to leave the classroom to go to that classroom, which raises a lot of questions, and sometimes it's kind of hard to explain in a positive way that that the students that are asking know about it. Most times it's you give the response as to don't worry about it. I have kids that come into my room. We have kids that go to a different room, and it's just how how we're teaching the reading groups. Well, when those students leaving the classroom to go to that other group, they tend to know each other pretty well because they've traveled among grade levels with each other. And like I said before, when those students realize that they are within that same group every year because they're not gaining as much to test out of that group, they tend to see that label and they don't like that label. In today's society, there's a lot of kids that tend to bully those types of students that are a little different, or their learning level is a little different, or their learning style is a little different. And a lot of the times the students that are within that group kind of start to lower their expectations, thinking that they are not good enough or as good as the other students, and that's something that you don't ever want to see within a child. When they go home and tell their parents that I'm in the lower group, or I'm in the group with this child, parents tend to think my child cannot be within that group. I know that student, I know their background, and they come very concerned with their child or the placement of their child. And sometimes within that group of students, when they are together for so long, because they're not making the gains that they need to get back into the other classroom, the students tend to sometimes lower their expectations or their output, because they know that they only have to be better than those other kids in their group, which doesn't exactly close the achievement gap there. And for instance, I had a student one time that tested out of the group, out of the lower reading group, and back into my room, and it was a completely different curriculum, and the student struggled at first. However, because of the attention that I gave him, or the difference in language or lingo in my classroom compared to the other one, after a while, once they caught on, they were able to get a little bit more comfortable with it. At first, kids were, well, why is he in our reading group? I thought he was in a different one. You just kind of explain that they're joining our group because they're ready. They're here to learn just like the rest of you are, and we're going to welcome him into our classroom, and we're going to show him how we learn on a daily basis and what we are all about. You kind of try to build that positive atmosphere for that student because they're trying to get rid of their label. Research tells us that ability grouping is not a neutral practice. Although it is widespread and widely accepted, ability grouping generally depresses student achievement and is harmful to kids. If you did any type of activity within the classroom, and it might not be a very long activity, it might be 10 minutes, and you group your students by ability. um, you your higher kids are going to be okay with it, but your lower kids, there's not going to be a leader that takes charge. They're going to kind of wait for the others to do what they need to. If you were going to do ability grouping within your classroom, just kind of how I just described, you would want to have it more structured. You'd want to be able to provide a task or a job per student within that group so that each one of them were held accountable for their outcome. And I think if you were just to do ability grouping all of the time with your activities, your your students aren't going to benefit from learning from each other. They're going to see that within their certain group that they're comfortable, they know where they're at within that group. But when you group them with mixed abilities, your students, it kind of pushes them out of their comfort zone. They're learning from each other. It may not be the most comfortable situation. However, they're really going to learn from each other. And as you go later in life and you get into high school or college or out into the workforce, there's going to be people that you may not get along with. However, you have to be able to work with them. And having it more structured with the tasks given to each member, you're going to hold each of them accountable, and they each know that they have a task to complete. Wrapping things up, in my opinion, I feel that ability grouping can benefit students at each of their levels in small doses. However, I really do feel that mixed grouping among all ability levels will again push them out of their comfort zone and will truly show them that they can learn from each other. It may not be a lot, it might be one or two things, but they're going to really find that we're having those skills, those social skills to work with others. They will realize that it's very important. So thank you for your time and allowing me to present to you.